Has anyone ever heard of the Panama Canal? Huh? Because we're being ripped off at the Panama Canal like we're being ripped off everywhere else.
United States of America has to pay for the Panama Canal. The Panama Canal remains a crucial hub for global commerce and is now becoming a battleground for major world powers. The United States' demand for free passage has been turned down. China has stepped back from its Belt and Road Initiative involvement, and unexpected moves by former President Trump threaten to alter the global landscape. These surprising developments are set to shift the balance of power significantly. What is happening at the Panama Canal? Marco Rubio is embarking on his first international visit in his current role, heading to Panama to address these pressing issues. President Marco Rubio has concluded his trip to Panama.
I'm not confused about Panama. We had conversations. I felt there were strong first steps. We have expectations we made clear in those conversations. I respect very much that Panama has a process. They're a democratically elected government. They have rules. They have laws. They're going to follow their process, but our expectations remain the same. In particular on that, I would just say that the United States has a treaty obligation to protect the Panama Canal if it comes under attack. That treaty obligation would have to be enforced by the armed forces of the United States, particularly the U.S. Navy. I find it absurd that we would have to pay fees to transit a zone that we are obligated to protect in a time of conflict.
Where he discussed the strategic canal that manages a substantial portion of global cargo traffic. The Panama Canal is vital, handling around 40% of the United States container shipments, highlighting its significance to American interests and the broader global economy. Countries that heavily rely on maritime trade, such as Australia, are especially vulnerable to any disruptions in key shipping routes. Even though the Panama Canal accommodates only a fraction of global maritime traffic, any disturbances here can influence the cost of goods worldwide. This is because the global supply chain would need to adjust to the reduced capacity of another essential waterway. In a recent monetary policy report, Australia's central bank noted a sharp increase in freight costs primarily due to conflicts in the Red Sea and drought-induced limitations at the Panama Canal. While these rising costs haven't yet led to higher consumer prices in Australia, sustained increases could trigger inflation, demonstrating the far-reaching effects of disruptions in maritime trade. The Panama Canal's ability to connect the Atlantic and Pacific Oceans significantly cuts down travel time for ships, saving both time and money. For example, a ship traveling at 20 knots would take about 11 days to go from San Francisco to New York using the Panama Canal. Without the canal, the same journey around the southern tip of South America would take approximately 27 days. Each year, over 13,000 ships navigate the canal, accounting for 5 to 6% of global trade. With 40% of United States container traffic passing through annually, the canal is the busiest for U.S. interests, alongside major users like China, Chile, Japan, and South Korea. Why is the Panama Canal so pivotal for Donald Trump? United States vessels represent a substantial portion of the canal's traffic, with 52% of transits in the current year involving ports from the United States. Annually, up to 14,000 ships use the canal to avoid the lengthy and expensive route around South America. While the canal remains crucial to Trump, it has also become a focal point in his second term. He has consistently voiced his intention to reclaim control of the historic waterway, claiming it is now under Chinese influence.
Has anyone ever heard of the Panama Canal? Huh? Because we're being ripped off at the Panama Canal like we're being ripped off everywhere else. The fees being charged by Panama are ridiculous, highly unfair, especially knowing the extraordinary generosity that has been bestowed to Panama. If the principles, both moral and legal, of this magnanimous gesture of giving are not followed, then we will demand that the Panama Canal be returned to the United States of America in full, quickly, and without question. I'm not going to stand for it.
Which he argues violates existing treaties. Rubio has communicated to Panamanian officials that the current situation is unacceptable and that the United States must take necessary actions to safeguard its treaty rights. Secretary of State Rubio emphasized that the canal's neutral status is being undermined, threatening the international accessibility guaranteed by previous agreements. The State Department has clarified that the White House's claims about free transit for government ships were incorrect, leading to tensions between the United States and Panama. President Molino firmly stated that the canal is and will remain under Panamanian control, rejecting any interference from other nations including China.
Le he pedido al canciller que si ese tema sale a la agenda simplemente sea rechazado por Panamá. Nosotros no vamos a hablar de mentiras. Eso es abundar en el morbo que de alguna manera se ha creado sobre el tema chino en Panamá y del control del Partido Comunista Chino en el canal. Por amor a Dios, en la agenda con Estados Unidos, que hay muchos puntos importantes y que personalmente quiero impulsar, los cuentos de camino y las especulaciones no forman parte de la agenda. Así que si eso lo traen, se desmiente y se rechaza y hasta ahí llega la conversación.
China's involvement in the Panama Canal has grown, making it the second largest user after the United States, accounting for over 21% of the canal's cargo volume in the past year. Chinese companies have operated port facilities on both the Atlantic and Pacific sides since the late 1990s, although they do not control access to the canal. Panama has also strengthened its ties with China, shifting diplomatic recognition away from Taiwan and embracing China's Belt and Road Initiative, which aims to expand China's economic influence globally. However, Panama recently decided not to renew its participation in this initiative, marking a significant shift in its foreign relations. While Trump's assertions about China's control over the Panama Canal are unfounded, his concerns about China's increasing influence are not entirely baseless. Maritime infrastructure is vital for the economic and national security of nations like Australia and the United States. Australia's experience with leasing a strategic port to a Chinese-owned company highlighted the potential risks of foreign control over critical infrastructure. Similarly, the Panama Canal remains essential to American security, with treaties ensuring its neutrality and allowing U.S. intervention if necessary to maintain its operation. China's investments in Panama extend beyond the canal, with significant involvement in port facilities that could be leveraged for intelligence and military purposes under Chinese national security laws. These investments provide China with a strategic presence in the region, especially at both ends of the canal. Rubio has urged Panama to sever the influence of the Chinese Communist Party over the canal zone, warning that the current situation threatens the canal's integrity and the broader interests of the United States.
Well, I hope nothing's going to happen, and it shouldn't, because look, the president's point is we gave the canal in a treaty to Panama. We didn't give it to China. You come back 20 years later and you go to the canal, and on the entry points of both sides of the canal is a Chinese-linked company. In fact, when I was visiting there yesterday, the ship behind me, just over my shoulder, was a Hong Kong shipping vessel. And so their presence, not just in the canal, but in Panama writ large, is very disturbing.
So ridding their presence could solve this whole problem?
Well, we didn't give the canal to China. I mean, it's a violation of the treaty. What I told President Molino yesterday was that President Trump's made a preliminary determination that that there's a violation of the treaty. You're in violation of the treaty because a sovereign other country, a third country, has effective control over the canal area.
The broader trend of Chinese investment in global maritime routes, including in the Indian Ocean and other strategic locations, underscores China's ambition to dominate key shipping lanes. Investments in ports across the Solomon Islands and other regions give China substantial leverage over vital trade routes, which could be exploited during geopolitical tensions or conflicts. These developments raise concerns for maritime-dependent nations like Australia, which must navigate the complexities of maintaining secure and independent trade routes. Panama's response to the United States' demands has been firm and unwavering. President Molino has accused the United States of spreading false information about the canal, and has refused to allow U.S. government ships to pass through for free. This stance has further strained relations between the two countries, and has raised alarms in Latin America about potential shifts in regional power dynamics.
A mí me sorprende muchísimo el comunicado del Departamento de Estado de ayer, porque están haciendo comunicado importante, institucional, de la entidad que rige la política exterior de los Estados Unidos bajo el presidente de los Estados Unidos en función de una falsedad. Y eso es intolerable. Simple y sencillamente intolerable. Hay mucho más cosas que nos unen, muchos más intereses que nos unen que unos peajes por el canal, que además no llegan ni a 10 millones de dólares para un país como los Estados Unidos. Tampoco es que el peaje del canal está quebrando la economía de los Estados Unidos. Ni el gobierno ni la autoridad podrán exonerar del pago de peajes, derechos o tasas por la prestación de los servicios del canal. Esa es una limitante constitucional.
The dispute intensified shortly after Trump reiterated his unsubstantiated claims that the canal was unfairly returned to Panama in exchange for potential loss to Chinese control. Trump threatened severe consequences if the United States did not regain control over the canal, but such military action is widely considered unlikely. Nevertheless, Trump's rhetoric aims to pressure Panama and other Latin American nations to resist China's economic influence in the region. Panama's withdrawal from the Belt and Road Initiative was met with strong opposition from China, which blamed the United States for sabotaging the program. Chinese officials condemned the United States for what they described as irresponsible statements and interference in Panama's sovereign decisions. China expressed hope that Panama would reconsider its position based on mutual interests and eliminate foreign interference in its economic strategies. Under Trump's leadership, the United States adopted a more confrontational stance towards China, implementing new tariffs and seeking to curb China's rise as a global superpower. These economic measures, including substantial tariffs on imports from China, Canada, and Mexico, were part of a broader strategy to reassert American dominance in international trade and counteract China's expanding influence. Trump's approach also targeted Russia, viewing it as a significant rival and a supporter of China's ambitions. This dual focus on weakening both Chinese and Russian influence was central to Trump's foreign policy, aiming to protect American economic interests and maintain strategic advantages in key global regions like the Panama Canal. The ongoing tensions surrounding the Panama Canal reflect the broader geopolitical rivalry between the United States and China. Panama's commitment to maintaining control over the canal and its recent disengagement from the Belt and Road Initiative indicate a desire to preserve national sovereignty and resist external pressures. However, the United States remains determined to protect its interests, emphasizing the canal's importance to American security and economic well-being. The future of the Panama Canal sits at a crossroads, balancing the interests of global trade with the strategic ambitions of major world powers. President Molino's efforts to maintain Panama's sovereignty and neutrality are challenged by the United States' intent to reclaim control and China's growing investments in the region. This situation raises critical questions about the canal's role in international trade and its potential to become a flashpoint in the escalating rivalry between the world's leading nations. As the United States continues to push for greater influence over the Panama Canal, Panama faces the delicate task of navigating these competing pressures. Maintaining the canal's neutrality and ensuring its continued operation as a vital global trade route requires careful diplomacy and strategic decision-making. The Panama Canal's future will likely be shaped by the ongoing negotiations and the ability of Panama to assert its sovereignty while managing the influences of both the United States and China. The international community will be watching closely to see how this critical maritime passage adapts to the shifting dynamics of global power and trade. The decisions made in the coming months could set precedents for how other strategic infrastructures are managed in an increasingly interconnected and competitive world. In conclusion, the Panama Canal remains a vital artery for global trade, but its strategic importance has made it a focal point in the rivalry between the United States and China. Panama's recent actions to maintain control over the canal and withdraw from China's Belt and Road Initiative highlight the complex interplay of national sovereignty, economic interests, and geopolitical strategy. As the situation continues to evolve, the world watches to see how the balance of power will shift and what impact this will have on international trade and global relations. Thank you for tuning in and sharing your thoughts in the comments. We appreciate your support and look forward to bringing you more insights on critical global issues. Stay informed and engaged as we navigate these transformative times together.